Hello everyone, good afternoon to you all and thank you very much for joining us here today. My name is Yvonne Halpin and I'm the head of the Irish Marie Skłodowska-Curie Office and the National Delegate and National Contact Point for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions in Ireland. Before I introduce the webinar, I want to mention that we have closed captioning available today. Each delegate can alter the size of those captions by clicking on the CC button on the bottom of your screen. Our webinar today is focused on the EU's Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions Staff Exchange Programme, or the MSCA Staff Exchange. And this programme used to be known as RISE in Horizon 2020, but it has received something of a branding makeover under the Horizon Europe banner, and so it will be known as Staff Exchange going forward. In this webinar, you'll hear it referred to as Staff Exchange or RISE, depending on whether we're looking forward or looking back. So the programme promotes international, intersectoral and interdisciplinary collaboration in research and innovation through exchanging of staff at all career stages and sharing knowledge and ideas at all stages of the innovation chain. Indeed, staff who participate in these exchanges benefit from new knowledge, skills and career development perspectives, while their participating organisations increase their research and innovation capacities. So this session is for both academic and non-academic organisations based in Ireland, and we are very pleased to have so many of you with us today. There will be a Q&A session after our presentations. I do invite you to please post your questions into the Q&A function or indeed the chat function, and we will address as many of those as we can. Before I introduce the panel, I want to explain to you who we are in the Irish Marie Skłodowska-Curie Office and to do a bit of scene setting for you. So I will just share my slides. Okay, so as I mentioned, I am based in the Irish Marie Skłodowska-Curie Office. And the office is supported by the Irish Research Council and jointly operated under a partnership with the Irish Universities Association. The missions of the office are to promote the MSCA programmes, like we're doing today, to contribute to policy initiatives which are relevant to the actions, and to provide what we term a conception to completion service for the research active community in Ireland. And that is for researchers across all disciplines and across all sectors as well. And to put this, to talk a little bit about Ireland's success. So indeed, the MSCA has been a very successful programme in the previous European Union's Framework Programme for Research and Innovation, Horizon 2020. Throughout the 7 years of Horizon 2020, applicants in Ireland drew down €197 million of funding from the MSCA. And putting this into the context of Ireland's total drawdown in Horizon 2020, that was 1.18 billion across all programmes under the H2020 umbrella. So the MSCA indeed is strategically really important for Ireland. Irish applicants have been very successful, and we want to continue and build on that in the new framework programme, Horizon Europe. To drill down a little bit then into Ireland's success in the RISE programme, which we're here to talk about today under Horizon 2020. So there were in total 27 RISE projects coordinated by Irish applicants. Of course, there were many more Irish researchers involved in RISE projects as beneficiaries and partners. And Irish applicants have been indeed very successful in the programme. To give you a comparison, applicants applying from Ireland were 1.8 times more successful on average when you compare that to the EU average success rate in the RISE programme across Horizon 2020. And applicants from Ireland drew down 12.5 million in EU funding from the RISE programme in Horizon 2020. And to mention as well that this is a programme which is great for organisations across sectors, and to highlight particularly that about 19% of the funding which applicants drew down from the RISE programme in Horizon 2020 was from the private for-profit organisations. So it's a programme which is suited for organisations across all sectors. The Irish Marie Skłodowska-Curie Office then is here to provide support for applicants. And I stress that this is for applicants across all disciplines and across all sectors. And we provide support through the promotion of staff exchange and indeed other Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, and providing guidance to applicants. We provide information webinars such as these, and indeed other resources which will prove useful for you in applying to the programme. And we offer a proposal pre-review service in advance of the call deadline. So please do get in contact with the office if you're thinking of applying. To mention as well that the Euraxis Ireland office is housed within the Irish Universities Association, and this is a service for researchers, universities and entrepreneurs with a mission to provide practical support and links to research, job and career development opportunities. The service operates the Fast Track Immigration Hosting Agreement Scheme, allowing for employment of non-EEA MSCA Fellows in Irish academia and industry. And the message is very much to contact the Euraxis Ireland office if you need information about the hosting agreement scheme for non-EEA researchers working in Ireland. If you have a query concerning employment of a foreign researcher in Ireland on a hosting agreement scheme. Indeed, please contact us if you need advice regarding visa or working permission guidelines, or you want to learn about immigration rules in other European countries, or want to find a Euraxis expert in another country. The Euraxis service is also a great service for researchers who are looking for jobs and career opportunities, and indeed for advertising research vacancies as well. Also contact the office if you want to engage in any of the Euraxis initiatives, such as the recent intersectoral mentoring programme for early stage researchers 2022. And the person you need to talk to is my colleague Magda. Her details are here, and these slides will be available for you after the webinar. So that was to just give you a snapshot overview of the Irish Marie Skłodowska-Curie Office and the services that we provide for applicants. Our contact details are here, as our Twitter handle, and these will be available for you afterwards. So that brings me then to the panel. And we are delighted to be joined by Raquel Jimenez Frias of the European Research Executive Agency, who will present an overview of the Staff Exchange's action and the changes in Horizon Europe versus Horizon 2020. And then showcasing successful RISE awardees from Ireland, we have Dr. Abel Polese, an MSCA RISE coordinator from Dublin City University. And from University College Dublin, we are joined by RISE coordinator, Dr. Olive Lennon. So I will stop sharing my screen. And we will begin with Raquel. Raquel, I'll invite you to turn on your camera. You can start sharing. Raquel is a project advisor in the European Research Executive Agency in the MSCA Staff Exchanges scheme within the Life Sciences panel. Raquel has extensive experience working for the European Commission for the last 12 years and working with and for European projects for more than 17 years. Most of them in the field of research, but also in the fields of infrastructure and cooperation. Raquel will now present an overview of the MSCA staff exchanges under Horizon Europe. And over to you, Raquel.
Thank you very much, Yvonne, for your kind introduction and also for organizing this event, which will be focused on staff exchanges. I would like to say congratulations to all of you who had already been granted with funding for RISE, the old Research and Innovation Staff Exchange program. Me personally, I always had a very good experience with Irish coordinators or participants. So I encourage you to submit your proposals for the next call of staff exchanges. So without further ado, please let me provide you with a quick overview of my presentation today. I will quickly frame the program Staff Exchange in its policy background, so you can grasp the context under the framework program Horizon Europe. And this will be followed by a more detailed explanation of the program itself and a small example of a RISE project. Of course, afterwards, you will have the opportunity to have first-hand information and experience from Dr. Polese and Dr. Lennon. So, so I will not go too much into detail for the example I provide. So, as you might already know, the Staff Exchanges program is a unique scheme within the framework Horizon Europe. Let me show you now its policy context. Sorry. So what is Horizon Europe? Horizon Europe briefly is the EU key funding program for research and innovation. It addresses climate change, it helps the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and boosts EU's competitiveness and growth. As you can see in its core, the program is built in 3 different pillars. Pillar 1, excellent science, is the pillar that is aimed to increase EU's global scientific competitiveness. It supports frontier research projects driven by top researchers through the European Research Council. It funds fellowships for experienced researchers, doctoral training networks, and exchanges through Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, and also invest in world-class research infrastructures. Pillar 2, global challenges and European industrial competitiveness, maybe is more relevant for industry, but not exclusively either. It supports cross-European collaborative research and innovation projects where both industry and academia can be involved. The pillar is divided into 6 thematically defined clusters, and it also adds the EU's Joint Research Centre, which supports EU's research and innovation policy. And the pillar includes also funding for European partnerships. And then we have Pillar 3, which is Innovative Europe. Brings together actors across Europe to build European innovation ecosystems and enhance interaction. It supports for commercialization of research results and includes the European Innovation Council and the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. Additionally to these 3 pillars, there are 5 missions aiming to deliver solutions to some of the greatest challenges that we face in our world. These challenges are cancer, adaptation to climate change, healthy oceans, climate neutral, and soil health and food. Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, and in particular staff exchanges, although a bottom-up program, will also contribute to these 5 different missions. Here in this slide, you can see the repartition of Horizon Europe budget, which will have a time span of 2021 to 2027. You can see in the budget, it also is included the widening part and the European research area. But also you can see Pillar 1, excellent science, is a substantial amount of funding, 25 billion euros. So going deeper into the Pillar 1, excellent science, we will focus today on Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, which is a European Union flagship program to support scientific excellence and cooperation across countries, sectors, and research fields. It equips researchers and its organization with new knowledge and skills through mobility and training. As you know, in a world which research is carried out on a global basis, international interaction is crucial to scientific success. The total budget for Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions in Horizon Europe is 6.6 billion euros. So now I'm looking back to the impressive results of Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions in the previous framework program, Horizon 2020, that had a slight lower budget, 6.2 billion euros. But as you can see, their results were quite impressive. more than 65,000 researchers were supported, of which 37% were coming from outside Europe. Additionally, more than 1,000 doctoral programs were funded. And as you can see, MSCA is not restricted to academic or public research organizations, but very much encourage the participation of private sector. So more than 4,500 companies received funding through MSCA schemes. In our effort to increase gender balance within the scientific world, we obtained almost balanced number of researchers funded. 42% of the researchers funded were female. We are aware that we need to keep working on this basis, so we hope that for Horizon Europe, these numbers for gender will improve. So let me show you some key features of the sample of Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. So one of the aims is to support two researchers in their quest to improve and develop their careers via training schemes and mobility programs where they can acquire new skills at all career stages, both for early researchers and experienced researchers. This contributes to improve their working and employment conditions. In the core of MSCA objectives is to support excellent research in all domains with a bottom-up approach. In fact, many of the projects are designed by the researchers themselves that then participate in the exchanges. This bottom-up approach helps to structure the impact on organizations through the participation in excellent research and exchange of knowledge and skills. It is very important also to consider the international, cross-sectoral and interdisciplinary mobility of researchers. As you know, researchers' mobilities contribute to the circulation of skills and ideas around the world. Mobility allows researchers to share expertise, skills or equipment and expand their collaboration networks in different countries, sectors and disciplines. Not only does help scientists to develop their experience, but also internationally mobile researchers produce more papers in average than those who had only ever worked in their native country. Participating organizations in MSCA, both academic and non-academic industries and SMEs, confirmed that they have increased and reinforced their networks and established long-lasting collaborations that often go beyond the duration of the projects they are participating in. As you can see in the slide, and very briefly, there are 5 main Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. First is doctoral networks, which is focused on early researchers, targets doctoral programs supporting research in academia and other sectors. Then we have postdoctoral fellowships that is focused on experienced researchers, supporting the careers of individual researchers and promoting excellence in science. And then we have co-fund that supports regional, national, and international doctoral and postdoctoral programs through co-funding, MSCA and citizens, bringing science closer to the public with the European Researchers' Night. And then, last but not least, staff exchanges that promotes knowledge collaboration between organizations and sharing practices in the context of a research project by researchers' mobility. So, having given you or providing you the policy context, now let's focus on staff exchanges. What is a staff exchanges about? Formerly known as RISE, or Research and Innovation Staff Exchange, a staff exchange action is a bottom-up program approach. It has a bottom-up approach, and it covers all fields of science. So we have this concept of scientific panels. It supports the mobility of researchers at all stages in their career, either experience or early stage, contributing to the mobility of research and innovation staff in 3 dimensions: intersectoral, international, and interdisciplinary. The mobility of staff is a program based on exchanges, promotes the knowledge transfer between participating organizations. Staff participating in the scheme will bring back to her or his organization the knowledge acquired during the secondment. But not only the staff in mobility establish new networks and reinforce existing ones, but also the participating organization settle and strengthen collaborations with other organizations, both within the academic and non-academic sectors, and working towards common goals in the framework of a project. It promotes long-lasting collaborations that, as I said before, often go beyond the duration of the project itself. So thus promoting cooperation across the globe, because staff exchanges is not limited to EU organizations only. So what triggers the participation in a staff exchange? What is the value added for staff members? It is normally a bottom-up program, thus often pushed by researchers themselves, supported by the added value that brings to their own organization. For a staff member, it's an excellent opportunity to acquire new skills and competences, which often go beyond their field of expertise. And for example, I mean, they can acquire from different sectors some knowledge that is horizontal, let's say, skills as management, patent registration, etc. So it also helps staff to increase their employability and career prospect, for example, to have a promotion, and not only help to acquire different experience and skills, but also exposure, and for example, more visibility. Often is the case that staff participating in the program will increase the number of papers written and also their visibility. And these experiences helped to solidify existing networks and also build new ones, which is key for researchers' careers as we advance towards an international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary scientific world. And what is in it for organizations? So they will benefit from the transfer of knowledge, so their staff will return to their organizations with improved skills and knowledge that will be a value added for the organization as well. And also by working towards the same goals with other organizations, they will establish and reinforce the collaborative networks in the 3 dimensions, as I mentioned before, and they enhance the research and innovation capacity. And both for staff members and organizations, I would say that there is an opportunity to turn ideas into products, processes, and services or prototypes. So who can participate in staff exchanges? Applications normally are based in with the concept of consortia. So several organizations will apply together. There is a minimum of 3 independent legal entities located in 3 different countries, 2 of which have to be in a different member states or associated countries. Other legal entities that are established only legal entities that are established in member states or associated countries can be considered as beneficiary. This means receiving funding. if all organizations are from the same sector, meaning that they are all academic or they are all non-academic, there must be at least one organization from a non-associated third country. Above this minimum, the participation of organizations from any country is possible. Secondments within member states or associated countries must be between different sectors normally, except for those that are considered interdisciplinary, and I will go into this concept a few slides afterwards. And obviously secondments must be always between two different countries, so organizations located in two different countries. So here you can see a table resuming the eligibility of the secondments. Basically, we found all mobility from Europe towards a beneficiary of a different sector, so a European beneficiary to, let's say, academic to non-academic and vice versa. Then now this is a novelty in staff exchanges, where a mobility within Europe in the same sector is allowed, but limited to 1/3 of all eligible secondments in funding, eligible secondments in the project. Then, of course, it's eligible also the secondments that go from a beneficiary in Europe to a partner in a third country. And it is, although secondments from a country not listed in Annex A of the work program are not eligible for funding, so from third country to Europe, they should be described, however, in the plan for secondments. So let me go back to this concept of interdisciplinarity. Now it's possible that secondments within Europe in the same sector can take place, but with this cap of 1/3 of the total number of secondments, if they are considered interdisciplinary. What is considered interdisciplinary? So is if the activities performed during the secondment integrate aspects, let's say information, data, techniques, tools, perspective, concepts or theories from two or more different scientific disciplines. So when you are preparing the application to a staff exchange, we will suggest you to incorporate in part A of the proposal the descriptors or keywords that are included in RIA website. It's the first level MSCA keywords. You can see in the funding and tender portal a link to this document, which can be of help when you are preparing your application. And also evaluators will be suggested to use these keywords to assess the interdisciplinarity of the projects and the secondments. Who can be seconded? In who is eligible for participating in the program? So secondments are open to any type of staff contributing to research and innovation activities. This can be mainly researchers, but also administrative, managerial, and technical staff. The definition of a staff is according to national law and internal practices with the organizations having mainly that confer the organization the legal means in terms of control, supervision, and instructions over the secondee during the secondment. So researchers can be, as I said before, at any stage of their career, including doctoral candidates and postdoctoral researchers. supported staff member must be actively engaged in research and innovation activities for at least 1 month prior to the first secondment. And secondment can last from a minimum of 1 month to 12 months per staff member. This is a novelty of staff exchanges compared to RISE. Now, the minimum duration of 1 month is independent of the institutions where they go. So it can be combined for the same staff. This minimum, if it goes 15 days to one organization and 15 days to other, this minimum of 1 month, we will consider it fulfilled. So during the secondment, the staff needs to be full-time devoted to the action. And after the period of secondment, seconded staff should return to their sending institution to maximize the impact of the change and ensure that the knowledge transfer and long-term collaboration is in place. So in staff exchanges, we use the concept of unit cost. So basically per month completed of the comment or of exchanges, then the organization will receive a total of 4,600 euros, which is divided in 2,300 euros fully provided to the staff participating in the exchange. That serves as a top-up allowance contributing to travel, accommodation, and subsistence cost. And then there is this other part, the other 2,300 euros, that is divided in research, training, and networking contributions, covering costs for training, transfer of knowledge, networking activities, and research expenses such as laboratory expenses, laboratory material, etc. And then there is the management and indirect cost that covers the beneficiary additional cost of participating in the action, mainly for the project management and coordination. When we look into the split, there's 2 blue lines underneath, in total 2,300 euros. It can be decided in the consortium that this amount is used, for example, to cover other kind of costs, of course, related to the project, such as the secondments of third country institutions that are not funded in principle by the program. So in summary, staff exchanges projects have a duration of 4 years. The maximum number of months, person months per project, now the limit has been reduced to 360 versus the 540 person months that we had for RISE. So this 360 person months is equivalent more or less to 1.65 million euros. So secondments can last from 1 to 12 months per staff, but now there is the possibility to do intra-Europe secondments with the condition that they are interdisciplinary. Then the secondment budget, although it remains the same per person month, 4,600, the composition is slightly different from staff from RISE, but it is more or less, I mean, it doesn't vary much. And there is the simplification, of course, of the minimum duration of secondments of 1 month that is independent of the institution where the staff go. In average, the calls for staff exchanges will have a budget in total of 75.5 million euros for 2021-2022 calls. versus the 80 million euros that we have, for example, in RISE last call in 2020. So let me now briefly present the key aspects about proposal submission and evaluation. We can go in further detail then afterwards with your questions. As you already know, all calls in under Horizon Europe are published in the Funding and Tender Opportunities portal. You can find the address at the bottom of the slide. All relevant information is published there, such as all the documents, important documents, such as work program, guide for applicants, ad hoc templates, and the links to complete and submit your proposal. Now you have also the opportunities to find partners for your consortium. There is a function for that. And also there are some online manuals and IT tools showing you how to apply for funding. So here you can see a very detailed slide on the evaluation criteria used for the evaluation of proposals. This is included in the work program for Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action 2021-2022. This is, I would say, one of the most important tables that you can find when you are applying or preparing your application, because here you can find all the criteria where you should focus on when writing your application. So evaluators will focus on these criteria when they are scoring your proposal. I won't go into too much detail because it's basically you should read in detail when and carefully when you are preparing your proposal. So please save the date. Our call for 2021 open in October this year, and make sure that you apply for and submit your proposals before the deadline, the 9th of March in 2022. And the total budget for this call is 72.5 million euros. Another call will take place next year, more or less around the same date, with a slightly higher budget. Here I left you some tips and tricks to be kept in mind while preparing your application. They seem quite obvious, but I still think they are important. Don't forget to also contact your national contact point if you have any question. And then I will finalize with one example of a project. Okay, this project was from the first call of RISE. It is already finished, but to give you an overview of the type of projects that are funded under RISE. But again, we have all types of projects. Let's say in this case, it was a UK coordinator, 6 beneficiaries in Europe, and 4 third country partners. But the budget was not too high either. But as you can see, there are projects with consortium only with European partners. There are others that includes a lot of non-academic or a mixture of those. So I think RISE or staff exchanges now is quite flexible in terms of the structure of the consortium. What is important also is the coherence of the structure of the consortium with the proposal and the objectives that wants to be achieved with the project itself. And now I will finish here. I will be available for questions afterwards, and I hope that I have encouraged you to present proposals for the next for this ongoing call. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Raquel. You can stop sharing your screen and perhaps turn off your camera again until the Q&A session. That was a really comprehensive overview. Thank you, with a lot of information for our attendees. So as Raquel said, there will be a Q&A session after the presenters. So we'll hold off on the questions until then, but please do continue to enter your questions into the chat or the Q&A function. And there have been some of those coming through. As well, in the meantime, if you wish, I invite you to pop into the chat why you're here, what's attracting you to the MSCA Staff Exchange programme. And indeed, if you think there are any particular challenges or barriers to you applying, because our panelists might be able to share some insights into how you overcome them. So now we jump to the first of our two case studies, and I have the pleasure of introducing you to Dr. Abel Polese. And Dr. Polese is a Senior Research Fellow at Dublin City University with research interests in development, post-Soviet politics and governance structures. He has been a Marie Curie Fellow at the Technical University of Dresden and the University of Edinburgh, and has worked as a policy analyst for the European Commission in DG Research. Dr. Polese has extensive experience with the MSCA, having coordinated multiple MSCA projects, including 3 ongoing MSCA RISE projects, namely the New Markets, Shadow and Labour projects. So lots of insight to share. Abel, over to you.
Thank you, Yvonne, and thank you for the presentation. So I want to take a step back and go back to the. I mean, you were all mentioning that this is the successor of the RISE project in Horizon 2020, but actually, my experience with this project starts from even before, and it was called IRSES. I mean, and it was more or less the principles was more or less the same. The difference was that the money was much lower. So what would happen is that there would be only money for exchanges. It was going to be a kind of, and then the only way to to get some kind of extra money would be to slice off the money paid to the fellows, which has been forbidden then in Horizon 2020. But that was the time. Basically, that was the first big grant. I mean, large grant that I got in my career. So I'm very kind of nostalgic about the thing. Now, my experience with this grant says 2 things. The first is that it's a great way to start a network if you have an idea. And the second is that compared to other Marie Curie actions, it might be a bit more difficult to understand by the partners. So you just have to be careful, because as I was mentioning to Yvonne before, and she said that's a good advice. I mean, it's much worse. I mean, the worst thing that can happen to you in a project is not that you don't get the project, is that you get the project and then you fail. I mean, you screw the project. So if you do this, basically your credibility is going to go down. So what you have to do is, whatever you're going to do, you just have to be sure that what you're doing is kind of in the right direction. And then, of course, things happen. I mean, unexpected thing happen. But the important thing is that if you have a kind of reliable network, and it's going to be easier just to make up for whatever happens. So when I started with those IRSES, the main highlight, it was still possible to include the BRICS country. So it would be the first IRSES would be the highlight would be India. And that would give me the chance to kind of collaborate with one of the major Indian universities. The following one, I started working with China, and then I put 2 universities there. And I was very, very lucky because those universities also stayed. So in the course of the time, I mean, as it was mentioned before, some collaborations stay. And of course, you will not be able to keep all collaborations at the same time. I mean, some people change universities, so there was a good partner, and the good partner became kind of a neutral one because your contact was not there. But what I've gained through those first 2 ones that we have completed is that I have a very active collaboration with a few institutes now across Europe and beyond that they're still going on. It's been like almost 10 years now. The successor program was a bit more competitive because the IRSES, because of the fact that there was no overheads and the money was very limited, very few people were interested. So the Commission made an effort to make the program a bit more competitive competitive, and they added overheads, and they also added money for research, which was not the case before. Starting from there, it's just become, I mean, the RISE became a bit more popular, which is still not, I think it's still not as crowded as the doctoral networks or the Marie Curie individual fellowships, but it became much more competitive. Which was, in a sense, it's bad for me, honestly, but it's good for the program and for the applicants, because then you really need to reflect and write something which is solid, um, that to be able to kind of to get the funding. The other projects, I mean, I've been able to mix universities, disciplines, and I usually work, I mean, I mostly work with Asia. And so the first two that, I mean, the RISE that I got were with the post-Soviet states. What I was trying to do was to get a mix of universities, but also private partners, because I wanted to give the chance to people that were working hands-on on something to come to university and to get kind of theoretical knowledge that could kind of help their um, understanding of what they were doing. Because many people were just working and working and working, and they didn't spend time reflecting on what this could mean at a theoretical kind of scientific level. On the other hand, sometimes we scientists, we just get get stuck in our office, and we do things that are theoretical, and we don't look for the applicability of things, which is the other way around. So I was trying to send scientists to companies or to kind of non-academic entities that will be based in the region. So, I mean, just to give you an example, I mean, if I'm somebody studying Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan, and I want to get an understanding of how my research skills and how my kind of competencies can be used, by going to a place and by going to an institution which is not purely academic, I could learn, for instance, how to use my skills to write policy papers, to engage in dialogue. So, for instance, the Kyrgyz, I'm particularly fond of the Kyrgyz partner, because they are kind of in touch with the parliament, and whenever there is a law that has to protect children or women entrepreneurs, they are there. So if you go with the project, you go from DCU, you go from one of the partners, you go to Kyrgyzstan, you will not just use your research skills to kind of to do marketing or to do kind of research, applied research. You will also get the chance, if you're lucky and this happens while you're there, to see how it works, the dialogue between institutions and I mean political institutions and experts and the expert community. Because the lady there, she's also a member of the Business Association of Kyrgyzstan. She's working with with women entrepreneurs in the country. By the same token, I was able to get, for instance, one of her staff to Europe, and this person had got very little formal training in her kind of studies, so she was able to come and to attend some classes, formal classes. I mean, some kind of in a more academic format, so good to kind of to put a structure to systematize the knowledge that she was getting before. And we've been doing this for a few years, and for a few for a few researchers, which has been an immense, I mean, for me, it's been a very, very gratifying way of building capacity in the region and building capacity on the region. As I said, I mean, many organizations stay, some of them change, but that's also a good thing. I think this is kind of in the order of things, because after a few years, you understand that the collaboration potential of this partner is kind of coming to an end, which pushes you to look for another partner and look for new avenues. And by doing this in the beginning, of course, you have to get out of your comfort zone. But then once you get there, you get a much broader understanding of what is happening. The last one is also, I've been working with development in practice for some years in Southeast Asia. So the last one was about connecting an organization that are doing hands-on development and academic organization. This has been this has been extremely challenging, but also stimulating, because some of the organization have no idea of the connection that I could create. And this is becoming a very big opportunities for many of those people who've been working on community development at a very, very local level, to get some international experience. I mean, many of those people, they have traveled already. They know English because they were hosting volunteers, but they would get a chance to come and see how we do things here. And at the same time, I'll be able to send people out there and say, well, research is good, but you could also kind of apply research. So, for instance, I've been I've been doing a training on kind of research methods for evaluation and monitoring a project, which is halfway between using your research skills to kind of gather data and analyze data, and and working on a project which is very, very concrete. Um, so that's basically it's been the advantage. I remember if you want to apply for this, I think that the first thing you have to ensure is that you trust most of the people there. Now, what I do is usually I try to get a kind of a core network of people that I know and I trust, and to those I can add a few new ones. Because of course, without getting out of your circles, you will never be able to go beyond your limits. But of course, you don't want a network which is like 100% made of people you don't know. So the best way that I found so far to do this is to rely on a number of people that I know that they're never going to let me down, but then include a few new people that look promising, but you never know. So once you do this, the risk is even if one or two partners are kind of behaving, kind of underperforming. They're not keeping up with your expectations. You can still do lots of things with the other partners, and the other partner can also start overperforming, which is usually the case in RISE. It's not really, it's beyond your control who is going to be ready to go and where, because it depends on the health status of people. It depends on now it depends on the pandemic. It depends on who is available at the time, who has family commitments, who have professional commitments. So we're talking of a kind of relatively large turnover. So you cannot be sure that all the secondments that you were planning will be delivered, because somebody promised to leave to go for a year somewhere, and then this person found a better job somewhere else and leaves the organization, and then you are down. But that's where comes very handy the fact that you had other organizations that you can trust a lot, because those people, you would explain the situation to the others, and they will say, yes, but I think we can find somebody else that really wanted to come, but we didn't. We thought we didn't have enough months, so you jostle around with the things in a way which is beneficial to the project and is beneficial to the people. So my ethics has always been like, whatever you want to do in whatever organization, I just want to make sure that once you go home, you take home a lesson, you take home something that you can then use in your work. So it's not about, I don't want to control whatever you're going to learn there. I just want to make sure that I give you the opportunity, and then this opportunity will lead you somewhere. And I'm very happy that in many cases, the things that went well over my expectations. So there are some collaborations that have started without me, which is also one of the principles of my project. I want people to be able to work beyond my head and beyond Abel. If there are some collaborations that are born, like Turkey and India, I brought this, I was working with those two people that I knew pretty well, but they never met. And then after we visited India together with my kind of Turkish friend, they started kind of the collaboration. And I think he applied for Turkish national money for a project between Turkey and India. So I see Yvonne is back, so I'll stop here. And I'll just leave room for questions and comments also in the end.
Thank you, Abel. That was really interesting. I really appreciate you sharing your experience with going way back to FP7 and in Horizon 2020. And you very clearly highlighted the importance of carefully composing your network and how that can be the difference between success and failure when implementing the project. So some solid advice. I'm now going to invite Dr. Olive Lennon to turn on your camera, and you can start to share. Dr. Lennon is an assistant professor and the Associate Dean for Postgraduate Research Education in the School of Public Health, Physiotherapy and Sports Science at University College Dublin. Dr. Lennon has over 20 years of clinical experience as a physiotherapist in Ireland and in the US, specialising in neurorehabilitation. Her research and educational interests include lifestyle interventions in chronic disease management and preventive medicine. Dr. Lennon is the current chairperson of INSPIRE, an international network of stroke secondary prevention researchers, and the coordinator of the exciting PRO-GAIT MSCA RISE project. So Olive, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Yvonne, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to present today the PRO-GAIT exchange programme that was part of the H2020 RISE that I coordinate. Just in terms of the basic facts of this, it's a networked programme that builds towards a brain-computer interfaced robotic gait device after stroke. It was awarded 144,000 from the European Commission. And while that might seem quite small in relative numbers for grants, it is a partnership approach that is taken in these exchange programs, whereby the salary costs are covered by the institution or the partner organization, as is the person's time while on secondment. And as you will have heard from Raquel earlier, the funding really supports the secondments, the networking activities, and the training needs around that. It was a 4-year funding. We're in the process of applying for an extension because of COVID, and it funded in total 9 secondments, totaling 35 secondment months, which is almost 3 years when you think about it in terms of learning from, with, and about each other across an exchange program. That's quite a long time. To give a little background to myself, I'm a neurophysiotherapist with both clinical and research experience, primarily focused on how to help people with acquired brain injury to become as functionally independent as possible. In this realm, I'm interested in gait restoration and also the role of robotic assisted gait devices to help in this way. And these came from military developments for territorial army and kind of segued into healthcare and have relatively poor uptake in clinical environments to date, largely because physiotherapists and other rehabilitationists aren't convinced about their merits. And then I have my dream device, which is a device that would sense what a person wants to do, would know how much help they require and only deliver that amount of help. And as somebody recovers, then that amount of help tailors off until the device is no longer required. That mirrors maybe better what happens in real life in therapy. I went in UCD to an information session, not unlike today, about staff exchange programs, and I listened about the partners, the secondments, etc. Very much, again, like Raquel told us today, but I heard one thing very clearly, and that was that this was one of the easier grants to get in Horizon 2020, and I was starting out and wanting to become a PI on research projects, etc. So that's the main thing I heard. But I did go away and reflect on that because I had had dealings with the robotic company in the past. And I was saying, you know, these are designed by engineers who don't have the awareness and understanding of the clinical sector and of motor relearning for gait restoration. And, you know, brings around this kind of T-shaped research clinician who understands and develops skills that are cross-disciplinary, and that this enhances both their current practice and their job, but also further within the research arena. So I reflected on this and the RISE project together, and then went off to think about kind of in my aspirational robotic device, who are the key stakeholders? Obviously, you need physiotherapists and other rehabilitationists, and you need these hard-hatted people, the engineers who develop these robotic devices. And these people need to understand each other and their clinical drivers and expectations better. You need human-computer interface engineers who understand how to link the biosignals back in and entrain them back into a computer. You need the data analysts who can look at and model neural biosignal data to entrain it back into the robotic device. And of course, you need the people who've had a stroke and you need the clinicians that are working around that area and will ultimately adopt this technology on board. And so with that in mind, I built my consortium for the RISE. It has 7 partners from Ireland, from the UK, from Italy, from Austria, and one in the third country that we heard about in the US was a company that make exobionic devices. So we had 3 academic partners, 2 clinical partners, and 2 industry partners, because we coupled here with GTEC in Austria, who make wireless hardware and software for biosignal capture. And that was the consortium. I have to say, despite having heard that it was an easy grant to be successful in, I wasn't successful my first time round, and for a number of reasons. The first was that I really underestimated how long it would take to put together a consortium of this nature and to come to an agreement with our shared goals and drivers. The second was that I hugely underestimated how long it would take to fill in the application form. And the third and primary reason was that I really failed to understand this, the driving force for the funders, which wasn't about the science principles, although they were important. It was about how to improve the individuals themselves. At the time, and because we had both partners on the north and south of Ireland, we were offered an expert reviewer on our application grant. And the expert reviewer gave me really, really good feedback that I needed. But again, you need to build in time to respond to feedback in your application form in a timely fashion before you submit. But what he said was, your summary here is focused exclusively on the research. It would be better here to discuss the core of the proposal, that of knowledge exchange across borders and sectors, to build greater cross-disciplinary expertise. And he said, mention here also the partners you've brought together to give the reviewer a sense of all the organizations involved. Again, in another section, he said, you should expand this to say how you will be doing this, mentioning the expertise of the participants, your planned secondments, what workshops, seminars, etc. you're going to wrap around this exchange program. And again, I tended to talk about project management and not enough about knowledge sharing. And I was again given advice that there should be a table here detailing the secondments between academia and industry and academia, you know, to illustrate and how we were going to plan it, and for knowledge sharing. I was also told I was incredibly wordy and to put a lot of stuff into tables to make them easier to understand. But this was really excellent feedback for me. So on the first application, I made a statement something like this, that PRO-GAIT will deliver a comprehensive secondment and research program that seeks to fulfill key research gaps in rehabilitation robotics for gait after stroke. But on my second round, with some very valuable feedback, this was expanded to say it will develop a next generation of effective interdisciplinary intersectoral workers in the field of rehabilitation robotics. And that's the core of these exchange programs. And it took me 2 rounds to really grasp that well. I also took the opportunity here to highlight where there was expertise across the consortium that we could learn from and with each other about. And then I built from my work packages, which primarily on the first round were technical, to include a work package on management that detailed all the training that would be involved in the program, and also a work package on communication, dissemination, and exploitation. So while I worked on my work packages, I was now able to better articulate the secondments and how they built into this, and to answer this very important question, how do the secondments develop the secondees, and how do all the partners in the RISE grant benefit from involvement in this? Again, in your, sorry, I'm fiddling with buttons here. They're moving beyond me here. in your midterm review, you have to show that you did do all of these training events and you did do all of these dissemination events, including some open access events that were run by the EU. Here's one for Cork Discovers that we did. We did, of course, engage in the scientific activities, which is what I was focused on initially. So we've done lab work, we've done data collection in clinical sites using people who've had a stroke. We've had a number of publications. This one I'm particularly proud of because the interdisciplinary nature of what we were doing allowed us to put a desired checklist for future studies, what a clinician would like to know, what an engineer would like to know, what a neural signal brain-computer interface person would like to know. And we came together for that. We have another number of scientific publications and some more coming on train. But I will say that the impact of this has been really lasting collaborations within the network. So I have been involved with members of the PRO-GAIT consortium on a number of ITN applications in Horizon 2020. I've been fortunate and been successful myself in the Science Foundation Ireland Frontiers for the Future grant. That again, my standing as the coordinator on this grant and some of the proof of concept data we collected were instrumental in me getting that additional funding. And we're currently working towards an infrastructure grant on a neurotechnology ecosystem for the island of Ireland. And again, in terms of my own profile raising, I wouldn't normally have been at that table, although I think I should have been. So it's very important that your profile is up and that your contribution to this wider field can be recognized. We obviously acquired lots of skills across the training events and in the various fields of expertise. But in terms of career development, a number of the secondees have been promoted, have specialized, have changed careers with broader skill development. And through leveraging additional funding, we've created new postdoctoral research posts, funded PhD posts, and we've made business cases in clinical environments to invest in technology and in staff to run and work that technology. Just a final slide, because Yvonne asked me to give you some tips if I could. Up the top are my tips for how to build a successful exchange program. And to do that, and I think Abel really captured this very well, you have to build your exchange consortium really, really well and understand the drivers and challenges to each participant to be involved in an exchange program like this. You have to plan your work packages and the secondments really carefully with each other and build in the knowledge exchange and training events in and around that and articulate that really clearly in the application form. General grant tips that I'm very prone to making these errors myself, but I got very valuable advice once not to start into the application form until I could sell what I wanted to do on one page. Who were the main players? What were they going to be doing? Where were they going to be going? And what were the benefits of this? You do need to collaborate widely to strengthen interdisciplinary aspects of the research in an exchange program like this. And again, I wish I'd known this sooner, but collaborate on writing the grant as well, because across your consortium are different skill sets that are required. And also to get through the whole grant on one go. I kept polishing the start and then the end bits weren't as good as they should have been on my first application, because once you have a first draft, then you can get feedback and you can build in the time to consider the feedback and to act upon it before the final application. And so that's my story for today. And again, thank you very much to Yvonne and the IUA for inviting me here today.
Thank you, Olive. I really like the ending where you say, don't start writing the proposal until you can sell it on one page. I might have to steal that. I will invite our panelists to come back in and turn on your cameras now. Thank you to all of you who have submitted questions. We received questions also when attendees were registering for the webinar. So we've compiled a list of those. We will go through them we'll go through as many as we can now, there is a chance that we won't get to all of them. So I will say that you're very welcome to email to mariecurie@iua.ie if we don't get to your questions now. There was, just to start, I guess there was a question come through about wondering why Irish applicants were more successful compared to the EU average. And I guess this is coming from my own slides and to what this can be attributed. And really, I think Ireland recognised that the MSCA is a very strategically valuable programme, and that recognition goes, you know, back as far as FP7, if not before. And there have been dedicated support resources at organisational national level, and these resources have built up a wealth of knowledge and support for researchers who are applying to the MSCA. And I really do think that those dedicated resources that have been provided in the HEIs and in other types of organisations, and indeed at national level through the Irish Marie Skłodowska-Curie Office, that's what has played a significant role in Ireland's success. And of course, the research base itself and the researchers who have built up this expertise. So we will jump into the Q&A about the staff exchanges. Raquel, we have a few come in about the kind of technical aspects of the programme. So I might put a couple of those to you now. So one has come in, can staff who are employed on other EU grants participate in the staff exchanges? And are there any restrictions in that respect?
Yeah, this is a yes or no answer. Let's say it all depends. I mean, we have the constraints of that secondments are need to be done on a full-time basis. So this is while staff is on secondment, they should be devoted fully to the project. So therefore, it might find some difficulties when you are being paid by other EU grants to do at the same time two things completely different, because as I say, it's full time, and secondly, well, in for example, we had some constraints or limitations when you are applying for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions while you are on a staff exchange. You cannot combine, for example, another MSCA action, basically because of this full-time requirement. However, what we try to do is to find complementarities. Okay, you might stop somehow your EU grant funding for this if the staff finds limitation. Also, well, there is, it depends on the cases, but in some cases where there is no double funding, let's say the person can keep their salary and keep doing staff exchanges while let's say putting on hold other activities during the secondment. This might be possible, but for specific cases, I would say to send us an email so we can clarify before doing something that maybe not allowed and finding out afterwards. Yes.
Sure. And I guess related to that, and you may have just answered, but I will read this out anyway. So the challenge often, as you said, is the full-time nature of secondments. Some institutions are opposed to giving away their full-time staff for multiple months. In the digital age where a lot of work is done on laptops, would a part-time secondment option not be viable, where the staff is abroad at the host institution but dedicates only 50% to the MSCA project? So I guess is part-time an option there?
Yeah. This is a part-time question. It's simply, I mean, the logic behind is to maximize the time while a comment is done, to maximize the time that it's devoted to the project while on secondment. Basically because staff exchanges cannot be conceived without mobility. So now we saw that it's possible to telework and so on, but we have to remember that staff exchanges funds primarily travel and accommodation and subsistence cost for the fellow. So without that concept, without generating the mobility, the other part cannot be generated, let's say the other additional, what we used to call part B for research, innovation, etc. So unfortunately, this is a little bit of inflexibility, but I think it's in the concept and in the concept of the program itself, because it's based on mobility.
Okay, thank you. And perhaps one more, Raquel. So within a staff exchange network, does every partner have to both send and receive researchers on secondment, or could one beneficiary be a host only and not send any researchers from their institution?
Yeah. For this, in itself, the program is quite flexible, so it allows the participation of beneficiaries and partners that only host secondees. Is as Olive, Dr. Lennon was indicating, is to highlight how the complementarity of each participant in the project. So this has to be aligned with the objectives and the activities that this particular beneficiary will have in the project. So it has to be coherent, so that they only host, for example, secondees, but it's actually it's possible as long as they are hosting or sending one person a month. For us, it's eligible, let's say.
Okay, thank you. I might jump to some of our other panelists for a few moments. Perhaps Olive, I will come to you. So you touched on this somewhat in your presentation, but I think it's worth expanding on because of the real intersectoral nature of the staff exchanges. So you've highlighted how the PRO-GAIT project is a really good example of collaboration across sectors and includes organizations from enterprise, but also, for example, the hospital, academia. And can you expand a bit on how you started to build that network, how that collaboration came about? And I guess if you were applying for another staff exchange, how would you bring those learnings forward, and what would you do differently?
Well, I suppose firstly, you have to think about who you know, a bit like Abel was saying, who do you know and you've had dealings with, and do you trust? So at one stage, the exoskeleton company had come to Ireland and had dealings with Enterprise Ireland, and were looking at research and innovation, perhaps in Ireland. At that time, I met the CEO and the scientific director, and I had a very good chat with them, and we discussed some of my concerns about devices as they were being developed, etc. So I had that relationship established. And when I went to them as my first person, or first party that I wanted to include in this consortium, they led me to other partners, and other partners led me on to other partners. So they said there's an excellent clinical facility that is an exemplar in Italy. So I got in touch with the neurologist there, and they came on board very early as a collaborator. They linked me with a neurologist in a university who had a specific research interest in this field. And we have gone on to collaborate on a number of other applications, that person and myself. I had to go and find myself a brain-computer interface engineer. It worked out incredibly well, but I had to go cold calling people with my project. I couldn't identify anybody in this particular sphere here in UCD who could lead me on to that. So I was, looking around at people and their profiles, etc. And again, an excellent partnership that has gone on to fruition across other research projects with Professor Damien Coyle up in the University of Ulster. And then through those partners, we came to GTEC as to how we were going to collect our biosignals and to bring in another small medium enterprise partner. I probably didn't highlight enough maybe the benefits to the small medium enterprise partners in this organization. So for example, one of the key things that GTEC wanted as part of this was, to road test a 64 channel EEG wireless device that they were developing alongside EMG. And part of their secondments allowed them to do that, working on the outcomes that we were interested in PRO-GAIT. For exobionics, we've had a lot of dealings with their research and innovation center, looking at getting a platform that is more responsive to external information. So again, they're working on redesigning and developing their system that is more open to external systems, so that other hardware and software can interact better with it. So there's been a lot of benefit to those companies also from their involvement. It's easier and people understand academia better. We have research agendas, we deliver papers, etc. But for the partners, it's been really meaningful also for them.
Yeah, that's great, and that's really recognised now across the MSCA programs, like the benefit that the non-academic sector, particularly SMEs, can gain from being part of these MSCA actions, and that's something that the MSCA is really trying to promote and encourage and sell under Horizon Europe. Abel, if you are with us, I'll just pose a question to you. So I see that you were a Marie Curie Fellow earlier in your career, and so I'm curious about how that perhaps set you up or helped you in applying for subsequent Marie Curie projects or RISE grants, or helped you in building your networks. And I guess what I'm asking is, do you have any advice for younger researchers who may go on to apply to the Staff Exchanges program?
Well, thank you for the question. I don't see a real connection between my Marie Curie Fellowship and the IRSES, except that once I got funding for the Marie Curie program, I started liking the Marie Curie program, because, of course, those who feed you are also the good ones. So once I realized that I could not replicate my individual fellowship, and once I understood that I wanted a career that was a bit more independent, I knew that I had to find the money myself. So I went around and I identified a few possible targets, one of which was the IRSES. Actually, in FP7, and then the one of the predecessors of the RISE and now the Staff Exchange was also the AIPP. And so basically the RISE now is a mixture of what the IAPP used to be and the IRSES, because the IAPP was strictly between companies, non-academic organizations, and academic organizations. And that could be all around the world. And personally, I'm from the social science and economics. So what we do is not as flexible, or not flexible, as there is not so much interaction between what we do and non-academic partners. Because in many places you discover new products, you discover new reaction. You basically set the basis to develop a new program, and then you need a company or a startup to develop it. Whereas in the social science and economics, this circle is much more shattered, or is much more irregular than you have in other disciplines. So I remember the challenge in the beginning was like when I would ask my friends, like, do you have any companies? Do you have anyone working on research? They would say, yes, I have a foundation. And I was like, I don't need a foundation. I don't need a foundation. I don't need a research institute. I need something which is beyond the academic sector. So it took me a few years to identify companies and to identify organizations that could actually work that could actually function in the way the RISE was conceived to be. And even when they changed the idea that they changed the program to and they say that the European Commission proposed that if you can have exchanges beyond Europe, that you don't need other universities. You don't need other private partners. You can just go for universities. So the idea of the RISE would be either you exchange between universities and private partners, or you exchange between universities and non-European partners, or you mix the two when you change between universities and non-European partners that are also non-academic. once I started going in that direction, I just kept going that way because I saw that there was an advantage in kind of, I mean, of course we could do this kind of, I mean, doing an exchange between European university and non-European university is a good thing. But I think there is an added value in teaching, I mean, in showing social scientists they could actually, there are ways of working and evaluating their work beyond strict academic circles. So usually my network is a mixture of academic and non-academic organizations. If I cannot identify a good private partner, then I go for an academic organization, and then with the hope that once I have a kind of a gatekeeper in the country, once I go there for activities, I mean, before, especially before COVID, I spent lots of time going into, to visit partners that I didn't know very well, and then say, can you arrange meeting with anyone who is around here? So like the whole week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever time I was spending there, I was trying to identify other potential partners, so to have also an alternative, because it has happened in the past that the person at the guide of the organization has changed, and I've lost the organization because the successor was not as interested in my work as other wanted. At the same time, by just going there, I mean, when I went to Uzbekistan, and I was like, every day I was meeting new people and I was meeting new potential partners, to the point that I have replacements here and there now. And that's the way eventually, I mean, my network is still kind of can be still expanded. I mean, I don't think I'm done, but at least I was able to identify partners that were non-academic, and this is one of the main engines of the program, and I think we have to take advantage of it.
Really solid. Thank you, Abel. That's really helpful and useful advice. Raquel, I'll come back to you. We have a few more questions. So a question has come in. Apart from SMEs, does the program allow larger commercial partners to participate in it?
The answer is yes, and it's also very much encouraging. In fact, analyzing the impact of RISE program for the last year, Horizon 2020 program, we realized actually around 20, I think it was 25% of the EU budget was going to private sector. This incorporate the SMEs and larger companies. It's true that they might not instinctively be participating, but as I concur with Abel, that once you can establish the alliance, and very often is the case between universities and large industry, that they collaborate already in many projects. So once you incorporate, I think it's the benefit for both academic and non-academic is huge, and this is something that we saw in RISE, and we hope we expect to see also further in staff exchanges.
Thank you. And related to the budget, is there a maximum portion of the budget that can be given to any one country in the network? A bit like, I guess, the maximum 40% rule in the doctoral networks. Is it restricted in any way?
For us, there is no limitation. That's why I was saying it's rising or staff exchanges. Sorry, I still have it in my head. It's quite flexible in this regard. There is very little minimum and maximum. So there is no maximum in terms of percentage, but as I said before, all have to do with the objectives and activities that each beneficiary are entrusted within the proposal, so that things are coherent, and let's say that one beneficiary doesn't have 90% of the budget, while the rest only have 10%, because maybe it's not coherent or it's not realistic, let's say.
Yeah. and in the spirit of the program where you're trying to create a large, truly collaborative network. Perhaps time for one more, hopefully short question, because we are unfortunately nearing the end of our webinar. There has been a question, how many projects will approximately be funded has come in. I guess maybe Raquel, from your experience with the previous RISE programs, is there a rough number of proposals that would typically be funded?
It's a million dollar question, I would say, because we don't know till we receive all the proposals, how big the proposals can be. So as we said, we can have a project like Dr. Lennon's project with 36 person months, but up to 360 person months. So it's difficult to say. In average, I would say, maybe I'm not mistaken, but let's say that around 80%, 80 projects would be funded, but this is considering the last, let's say, RISE conditions where the maximum was larger. First call of each program, I would say that some people are still timid to apply. So maybe it's a chance for the brave ones to submit their applications. So let's see. I mean, RISE or staff exchanges, as normally RISE had a good success rate when you compare it with other Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, which have by large, a lot of proposals, or higher number of proposals than we do.
So the final message, Raquel, is to apply to the call with the March deadline in 2022. Yes. That brings us to the end of our webinar today. I want to thank you all for joining us. Hope you found it useful. I would really like to thank our panel for giving their time today, and particularly for sharing your experience, your insights, and all of the information on the open staff exchange call. A recording of today's webinar will be made available, and more information on the staff exchange action can be found on iua.ie, and that will link you to the relevant Commission websites as well. So that leaves me just to say, please contact Marie Curie at iua.ie. That will come through to me if you have any questions or need information or support. And other than that, I wish you all a very pleasant afternoon, and I look forward to speaking to you all again soon. Goodbye for now.